It is funded by the City of Regina and administered by the Saskatchewan Writers Guild, and it has been so since 1980. The $4,500 award enables one local writer to work on a specific solo writing project for a 3-month period. Each runner-up receives a 1-week retreat at St. Peter's Abbey in Munster. Say hello to the nuthatches for me. And it can be a life-changing thing to get this award. It is extraordinary to live somewhere with this kind of award existing, which is for work in progress. It recognizes potential. Getting an award after the fact, after the work is published or produced, is very nice. Don't get me wrong. But an award which essentially says, we think you can do this. Keep trying. It's the kind of vote of confidence that can make the difference between persevering and giving up for a writer. The late great writer Ursula Le Guin, whom I am proud to count as a friend, sent me a note that said, praise to the artist is like water to the plant. And I would add, a check ain't bad either. So thank you to the City of Regina for watering us with your long-standing support and funding of our trying. We're going to begin with greetings from the City of Regina. Tonight we're going to hear from Regina Mayor Sandra Masters via video. Unfortunately, Mayor Masters is unable to be here in person tonight, but we're thankful for her support and her virtual greeting.
On behalf of my council colleagues in the City of Regina, I would like to welcome you to the 2022 City of Regina Writing Award Show. It is great to see so many individuals in the literary arts community who work and live here in our city. The passion, dedication, and drive you have towards your work is inspiring. Writing is a way for people to express themselves and to tell stories, and I want to thank you for sharing your literary work with our community. Tonight, we are celebrating literary merit in creative writing, and I'd like to congratulate this year's winner of the $4,500 award, Ken Wilson, for his submission, Walking the Bypass, a meditation on place. He is currently sharing his talent and knowledge with future writers at the University of Regina. I'd also like to say congratulations to the runners-up, Marie Powell and Hannah Senicar, for their submissions. To provide an opportunity to showcase your talents, and I'm glad you've chosen our city as a place to develop and share your craft. You're the reason why the city has supported this award for 42 years in partnership with the Saskatchewan Writers Guild. To all those who submitted work, you should be so proud of your accomplishments, and please continue to share your work. I cannot wait to see what more you can achieve. Thank you again, and please enjoy the award show.
Right now, I'm going to ask Andrew Christopher to join us. He's going to bring greetings from the Saskatchewan Writers Guild Board of Directors.
All right, hello everyone. My name is Andrew Christopher, and I'm here on behalf of the Saskatchewan Writers Guild Board of Directors. I'm a relatively new board member, so it's really exciting to get to see all of your faces here. I feel very welcome, so thank you very much for this. I first wanted to say how great it is to see everyone here after the past couple of years. Getting to do something face-to-face is really exciting. So I look forward to having some chats with people after. Feel free to come up and we can have a little chat. What I want to make abundantly clear tonight is how deeply appreciative we are of the City of Regina for funding this award and the long-standing support. This award has actually been around, as mentioned, a little bit longer than I have, which I think is pretty impressive. When I found out how long it had been around, I thought that was incredibly amazing that has been providing that kind of support for writers here in the city for so long. It's really been a foundation for people to capitalize on their skills, and I think that's really important as writers. As a writer myself, I really understand that the opportunity that comes with winning an award like this is absolutely instrumental to supporting the time that you need in order to just sit and write and be focused on the work that you love to do. And I think the proof is in the proverbial pudding as well. When you look at the success of all of the winners of this award over the past 42 years, how many of those people have gone on to win awards based off of the writing that they were awarded through this? I want to congratulate all of the winner here today. So Ken Wilson, as well as the runner-ups, Marie Powell and Hannah Senicar. It's very exciting. I want you to revel in this moment, in this glory. Take it all in. This is a really exciting night for the three of you. So congratulations on this well-deserved success. And thank you again to the City of Regina. We really appreciate all of that long-standing support. So thank you very much.
Before we get to the main event, I'm just going to tell you a little bit about the judges who were responsible for selecting the winners tonight. They are an impressive set of people. This year's competition was judged by Canadian authors Eddie Bedell-Tan and Jane Monroe. Eddie is the author of the novels After Elias and The Rebellious Tide, and was a 2021 winner of the Rising Star Award by the Writers' Trust of Canada and finalist for the Edmund White Award. His stories can be found in Joyland, Yoke, Gertrude Press, and G&LR. He lives with his husband in Vancouver. Jane Monroe's newest book, a prose memoir, and Jane is our second judge, is Open Every Window. It's Douglas McIntyre 2021. Her sixth poetry collection, Blue Sonoma, which was with Brick Books, won the 2015 Griffin Poetry Prize. Her most recent poetry book is Glass Float, also with Brick. Monroe has taught creative writing in many universities, earned a doctorate and an MFA, and has read her work around the world. So these folks know what they're doing when they say yes. So now to the main event. First, I'd like to introduce this year's runners-up. First is Marie Powell. Marie's adventures in castle hopping across North Wales resulted in the award-winning young adult fantasy series Last of the Gifted, Spirit Sight, Book 1, and Water Sight, Book 2. Marie is the author of more than 40 books with such publishers as Scholastic Canada, Amicus, Crabtree, and more. Her short stories and poetry appear in literary magazines like Subterranean and Room, and among her 5 degrees, which I think is just getting a little showy, she holds an MFA in creative writing from UBC, and she lives with us on Treaty 4 in Regina. The jury said this about her young adult novel, See You. This project has all the necessary ingredients for a successful young adult paranormal thriller. A distinct voice, a compelling premise, an engaging, smart, intense, insightful, awkward yet courageous narrator, and heaps of imagination. Congratulations, Marie. Come on up.
I just want to say thank you. First of all, thank you, Kelly Jo. I'm really excited and grateful to receive this award. See You is actually a contemporary paranormal thriller. A 17-year-old photographer's summer internship on a dying community newspaper turns into a nightmare when she photographs phantoms on the city streets and then discovers that one of them might be her long-lost brother. Right? It's a very different direction for me because of that, and I want to say thank you, first of all, to my critique partners, Sharon Plum and Maureen Ulrich, for their very expert feedback, but also huge thanks to the City of Regina and the Saskatchewan Writers Guild as well for this opportunity. It is so important to have this kind of early recognition for new work and also new directions when you're a writer, and so thank you very much for that.
Our next runner-up is Hannah Senicar. Hannah's poetry has appeared in literary journals across the country and beyond, including CB2, a personal favorite, Cantheus, Prairie Fire, Rust, and Moth. Originally from a farm in southwest Saskatchewan, Hannah currently lives in Regina, Saskatchewan, Treaty 4, where she completed an MA in creative writing. And the jury said this about her poetry collection, Ruralia, other than its very challenging title for a host to read. This collection of poetry explores the longing and displacement, underscoring the author's relationship to their prairie home. It creates an undeniable sense of place, more urban than pastoral, with striking images and surprising, clever use of language. Congratulations, Hannah.
Thank you so much, everyone, for It's really lovely. And thank you to the City of Regina for this award. It's an incredible opportunity, and I'm so excited to be able to go on a retreat and work on my work. So I'd also like to thank all of the professors who have supported me through my creative writing MA, especially recently. Dr. Medri Purdham was my thesis advisor, and she gave me tons of mentorship and tons of support. And Michael Tressler as well, Dr. Michael Tressler, for just being a mentor and a great influence in my creative writing. So thank you so much.
And now we come to the winner. Ken Wilson, who lives on Treaty Fort territory in Regina, Saskatchewan, where he teaches English at the University of Regina. He has published academic essays in scholarly journals, and his creative nonfiction essay, Populous, was shortlisted for the Malahat Review's Constant Book Award. He holds an MFA from the University of Regina and is an alumnus, as are many of us, of the Sage Hill writing experience. The jury said this about his current writing project, Walking the Bypass. And my goodness, they liked it. This project of creative nonfiction captures the collective worries of a time and place as vividly as the landscape it describes, Regina during the summer of 2020. The author eschews familiar pandemic-era territory to explore subjects that are surprising and rooted in the local psyche, from the Saskatchewan government's refusal to develop an effective suicide prevention strategy to the troubled development of a new highway. Walking the bypass, which allows traffic to avoid, circumnavigate the city's congestion, serves as a metaphor for things governments have also chosen to bypass. These external forces cause the author to reflect on their personal struggles, which are described with wisdom and evocative prose. Ambitious yet contemplative, this project is sure to realize its vision of providing a deeper understanding of the place in which it was written. We hope the City of Regina Writing Award helps the author to find the publisher and readership they deserve. Congratulations.
Yes, I am going to put this away. Thanks, Kelly Jo. And I want to thank the judges and the Saskatchewan Writers Guild and the City of Regina. And during Mayor Masters' remarks, I realized I make a bit of a crack about the city in the second sentence of what I'm about to read. Don't tell her. Okay? I also want to thank Sage Hill. This book project, well, it's not a book yet, but maybe someday, came out of the 2020 Creative Nonfiction Workshop at Sage Hill. And my colleagues and I from Sage Hill continue to meet monthly to talk about our work on Zoom. We've never actually met in person. So that's one good thing, I guess, about the pandemic, that it enabled that to happen. I'm going to read two small sections of the manuscript, Walking the Bypass and Meditation on Place. The first is from the 5th chapter, and it's an account of a solo walk to the Global Transportation Hub. And that's the only kind of walk you would make to the Global Transportation Hub, because no one else will go with you. And I went there to look at across the tracks at the Canadian Pacific Intermodal Yard. And the second is from the last chapter, and it tells the story of part of a walk with other people along Highway 11, north of Regina. It mentions an issue that's still in the news now, 2 years later. On the 6 o'clock news, I couldn't believe that we were still talking about the same thing. I'm going to pause for a moment between the two parts of the manuscript, and then I'll just sort of, like traffic on the bypass, I'll just keep moving. The road makes a hard left turn to skirt the south side of the airport. A city worker is sleeping in her idling truck. A meadowlark flutes beyond the airport fence, and a tiny plane lifts into the air. I stop to look at a roadside memorial, a stone cross, plastic flowers, animals and birds, a beer glass, one boot. I taste the dust raised by passing trucks. To the north, past the airport, a train sounds its horn, a long line of containers heading west. At Courtney Street, the road is marked as Hill Avenue. The airport ends. The city ends. To the south, Courtney Street becomes a dirt road. A sign reads, "Impassable when wet." The fields on either side of the road have been seeded. There's another farm ahead, and I hear an angry dog barking. Is it tied up? I sure hope so. Signs at the end of the driveway warn passersby to beware of the dog, but it's fallen silent. Shrubs in the shelter belt around the old farmhouse are in bloom. I look at their pink and white blossoms and wonder what they are. I'm getting closer to the Regina bypass. A sign marks the old center road. Before the bypass was constructed, this was the corner where I would turn towards the village of Pence, 25 kilometers further west, when I was training to walk the Camino de Santiago. Another meadowlark is singing nearby. Beyond the bypass, I can see the big white Loblaws warehouse at the Global Transportation Hub. I pause to drink some water. Over the rushing wind, I can hear trucks on the highway. And to the north, an eastbound train is hauling covered hopper cars filled with potash. I cross the bypass and trudge west. Stacks of containers are piled in the CP intermodal yard. Ashes lie beside the road. Strange place for a campfire. I turn north on Fleming Road, another line of dirt that will become mud when it rains. This place is grimly unattractive. The fallow fields are the same gray as the road. A dusty robin hops around. "Tansi Pipacheo," I say. "Hello, Robin." He looks lost. "Go back to the city," I tell him, "where there are trees." At the intermodal yard, I can see two large tractors. They're called container handlers, according to Google, jockeying steel boxes around. A truck honks its horn, and the container handlers beep loudly as they carry their burdens from one place to another. They are tall, ungainly-looking machines, and their constant beeping must drive their operators crazy. Without gantries, the Canadian Pacific Intermodal Yard looks temporary, even fly-by-night. Containers are stacked 3 high in a long line beside the railway tracks. Empty flat cars sit on the side. A fence at the end of the road deters, but doesn't block access to the yard. I could easily walk around it, cross the tracks, and wander inside. A sign on the fence warns of video surveillance. I sit on a concrete barrier dropped in the road to discourage drivers from getting too close to the yard and eat the apple I've brought. I take photographs, which suggest the yard is tiny and insignificant compared to the sky. White cumulus clouds scud east. A red-winged blackbird trills and I hear another meadowlark. One of the machines drops a container onto a truck trailer with a screeching noise. What's in those containers? Are they full or empty? Coming or going? There's no way to tell. Trucks pick up loads, then drive off. The container handlers move to a different part of the yard, and everything becomes surprisingly quiet. The sound of the machinery blends in with the wind and the birds. The sun is warm. It's peaceful. Then the container handlers return and the spell is broken. I drink more water and turn to retrace my steps. My legs are stiff after my rest, as always. I notice wells for testing groundwater, and discarded bottles of colored dye suggest there's been some kind of Easter egg party here. To the south, traffic is moving noiselessly along Highway 1. I turn east. The only sounds are the wind in my feet on the gravel road. I can see the city on the horizon with the bypass in the foreground. A raven hovers, and 2 pairs of mourning doves fly up from the ditch, their wings squeaking, followed by a couple of gray partridges. I walk back across the overpass. A police car speeds by, lights flashing, sirens screaming, and I hear another meadowlark. A flock of red-winged blackbirds is singing in an overgrown dugout. There are so many of them. Every slough and dugout has its own population. I surprise a pair of ducks which splash into the air and cross the Canadian Pacific tracks. A tow motor is grumbling in the yard at Grant Industries. I pick up a quartz crystal from the shoulder, discarded perhaps because its medicinal powers were exaggerated, An abandoned shoe lies next to the road. A plastic bag in a dry slough moves in the wind like a wounded bird. Distance expands when you walk outside the city. Landmarks are few. Highway interchanges are kilometers apart. It's disorienting. How much farther do I have to walk? Will I get to my destination in time? I check my watch again, and flies perch on a dead gopher. Sunflowers and sow thistle thrive beside the highway, and the field of yellow canola to the west has almost finished flowering. A plastic plate of banana bread has miraculously landed on the shoulder without spilling its carton. Wild licorice is in bloom among the sunflowers, along with pink pasture rose. I see yet another beer can in the ditch. The blast from a passing semi tugs at my hat. And then I reach my destination, the weigh scales on Highway 11, just north of the sign that welcomes drivers to Regina. People are already gathering in the parking lot. A group of Indigenous people led by Tristan DeRoche and Christopher Morasti has been walking south from Orange for the past month, some 600 kilometers towards Regina. Their motivation, the provincial government's refusal to support legislation introduced by NDP MLA Doyle Vermette that would enact a provincial suicide prevention strategy. Saskatchewan has the country's highest suicide rate. In the north, the suicide is the leading cause of death for people between the ages of 10 and 45. And that rate is increasing. Yet this province stands alone in having no viable strategy to keep people from killing themselves. Yes, the province did release a prevention strategy, but it doesn't go as far as Vermette's bill would have. According to Jack Hicks, a researcher who has studied over 100 suicide prevention strategies from around the world and advised the Federation of Sovereign Indigenous Nations on its suicide prevention plan, the government strategy is the weakest he has ever seen, vague and filled with platitudes. It doesn't look at successful models, such as the one in Quebec, where 2 decades ago the government set up a provincial suicide hotline, established suicide prevention centers in every region of the province, instituted better mental health treatment and follow-up for people who attempt suicide, installed barriers on bridges and railway trestles that have been the sites of multiple suicide attempts, and improved training for staff at youth protection agencies. And it worked. The youth suicide rate has dropped in half. Perhaps the Saskatchewan government's reluctance to respond to the suicide emergency in the province's north has to do with the fact that the problem mainly affects Indigenous communities, Hicks suggests. Let us be clear, he writes. If white girls in this province had a suicide rate 30 times that of First Nations girls, concerted action would be taken. A very different suicide prevention strategy would have been released with the funding required to ensure effective implementation. The province's strategy confirms the ongoing systemic racism in healthcare in Saskatchewan. When the government unanimously voted down Vermette's bill, DeRoche and Morasti decided they had to do something. Their trek is called Walking with Our Angels. I read about it on Facebook earlier this week, and I decided I would walk from the scales to the legislature with the group. I see a tall and very tanned man resting in a chair, and I approach him. You must be one of the walkers, I say. He's Christopher Morasti. He tells me this is the 28th day of their walk. On the 4th or 5th night out, he says, camping alongside the road, he dreamed that when they got to Regina, the ground was shaking, and he looked behind to see the entire province walking with them. It was a powerful vision for him. We chat briefly, but he has work to do. I noticed the poet Bruce Rice, and I introduced myself. We met at St. Hill 3 years ago, I say. He puts out his hand and we shake. It's the first time since the pandemic began that I've shaken hands with someone, and I tell him so. We laugh uncomfortably. I've got some hand sanitizer, and we share it. I chat with a couple of NDP MLAs, including Carla Beck, who represents the constituency where I live, and the artist Joey Big Eagle Kakadaway. who is leading the campaign to rename Dewdney Avenue. Dewdney Avenue runs through the heart of our city, she says. Is that what we want our heart to represent? It's true. Only Dewdney Avenue and Albert Street cross the city completely. Both names are Victorian relics, but Dewdney's name smacks of colonialism and genocide. I stretch and take photographs of the gathering crowd. A fellow carrying a drum stops to shake hands with the police officers who will escort the group down the highway. I think I see someone from one of my Nahiawewan language classes, but because she's wearing a mask, I can't tell for sure. And people keep misrecognizing me too, partly because I'm wearing a mask, and partly because my notepad misidentifies me as a journalist. Christopher offers to give me a formal interview after we arrive at the legislature. Well, I'm just a writer, not a reporter, I say. And he tells me to write with my heart that the issue of mental health and suicide